Today, we're diving into a 200-year-long struggle that almost ripped ancient Rome in two. This is the ultimate showdown, the powerful few against the determined many. And, believe it or not, the outcome of this ancient fight created ideas about fairness in government that are still a huge deal for all of us today.
But first, let me ask you something. Just imagine for a second that the rules for your entire life, everything about your property, your family, even your personal freedom, were a complete secret, and only the people in charge knew what they were, and they could change them whenever they wanted to benefit themselves. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, for the vast majority of people in early Rome, this wasn't just a bad dream. It was their everyday reality.
So to really get what this whole conflict was about, you first have to understand who was in the ring. Early Roman society was basically split right down the middle into two very different and very unequal classes.
And the difference between them was, well, it was night and day. On one side, you had the Patricians. These were the wealthy, powerful families who held all the cards. And on the other side, you had the Plebeians. That's pretty much everyone else. The farmers, the soldiers, the craftsmen. They were the engine that made Rome run, but they had zero say in where the city was going.
So let's break that down. Who were the Patricians? Think of them as the original 1%. They believed their ancestors had founded Rome itself, which, in their view, gave them a divine right to rule. They were the only ones who could be senators or get the top government jobs. They controlled the money, the courts, the religion, basically the whole shebang.
And the plebeians? Well, they were everybody else. They were the absolute backbone of Rome. They grew the food, they made the goods, they fought the wars. But here's the crazy part. They were treated like second-class citizens, with almost no legal power to protect themselves.
And this gets us right back to that secret rulebook. Life for a plebeian was just incredibly unfair. A patrician judge could literally make up the law on the spot to help a rich friend. And get this, if a plebeian farmer fell into debt, maybe because Rome forced him to leave his fields to go fight in a war, he and his entire family could be sold into slavery. Just like that.
Yeah, a system like that is a ticking time bomb. And eventually, the tension boiled over, leading to one of the most amazing events in ancient history, what was basically the world's very first general strike.
So, in 494 BC, the plebeians played their ultimate trump card. They just left. The entire working population of Rome walked out of the city and set up camp on a nearby hill. They put down their tools, and most importantly, they put down their swords. With no one to fight its wars, Rome was completely defenseless. The patricians, you can bet, started to panic. They had no choice but to negotiate.
This moment, called the First Secession, was a massive turning point. It proved a simple, timeless truth. There is incredible power when people stand together and act as one. The plebeians suddenly realized they weren't powerless at all.
And you know what? It worked. The strike absolutely worked. The patricians caved, and this first big victory led to brand new rules and a whole new kind of power for the common people.
But this was not a quick fix. Not even close. The whole struggle for real equality would take more than 200 years. So, let's break down those first couple of huge victories that came out of that initial strike.
The first thing the plebeians won was the right to elect their own government officials, called the tribunes of the plebs. Their one and only job was to protect the rights of the common person. And, to make sure nobody could threaten them, a tribune was declared sacrosanct, a fancy word that meant harming them in any way was a crime punishable by death. And the tribunes were given a superpower, a single word, veto. In Latin, it literally means, I forbid. With that one word, a tribune could stop any action, any law, from any patrician official, dead in its tracks. That's a massive check on power, all wrapped up in one word.
Okay, having a powerful protector was a huge step, but it didn't solve that original problem, did it? The secret, unwritten laws. So that was the plebeians' next big demand. You can't have a just society if no one knows the rules of the game.
This demand led to the Law of the 12 Tables. This was absolutely revolutionary. For the first time in Roman history, the laws were written down, carved into bronze tablets, and put up in the Roman Forum for every single person to see. This was a game changer. No more secret rules. The law was finally the law for everyone.
All right, so the plebeians now have protectors and they have written laws. These are huge wins. But they weren't even close to done. Their next target was the very top, a seat at the head of the government.
See, the most powerful job in the Roman Republic was called a consul. Rome always had two of them at a time, and they were kind of like a president and a five-star general rolled into one.
For centuries, this was a patrician's only club. It was the ultimate symbol of power.
But after decades more of political fighting, the plebeians did the impossible. A new law was passed that didn't just allow a plebeian to be consul, it required that one of the two consuls had to be a plebeian every single year. The highest glass ceiling in Rome had just been shattered into 1,000,000 pieces.
And after that, the victories just kept rolling in. They passed laws to give poor people relief from their debts. That awful practice of debt slavery was finally abolished for good. And a new law was even passed that allowed patricians and plebeians to marry each other, breaking down the social walls that had kept them apart.
The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place in 287 BC with a law called the Lex Hortensia. This was the end game. It declared that any law passed by the plebeians' own council was now binding on all Roman citizens, patricians included. This was it. This was the moment of full political equality.
So, after 200 years of fighting, what's the big takeaway? How did this incredibly long and bitter struggle change Rome? And, why does it still matter to us all these centuries later?
What's really amazing is that this conflict didn't break Rome. It could have, easily. Instead, it forced Rome to grow up. By having to compromise and invent new solutions, the Romans ended up creating a stronger, more flexible, and more balanced government that was truly built to last.
And the legacy of this struggle is all around us. The idea of checks and balances, where one part of government can stop another, that comes from the tribune's power. The powerful concept of a veto to protect a minority's rights, that started right here. The basic principle that laws must be written down and apply to everyone equally, forged in the fire of this very conflict.
So, you see, the story of the plebeians is so much more than just ancient history. It's a powerful reminder of what can happen when ordinary people get organized and demand to be treated fairly. And it leaves us with a really important question to think about. What rights that we take for granted in our own world today only exist because somewhere, sometime, a group of people decided to stand together and fight for them?